Hello everyone, my name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War, Season 5, Episode 12.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, before we get started with today's episode, a few weeks ago, I was taking a nap, regular old afternoon nap like your old buddy Victor here enjoys doing. And when I did, I wasn't listening to one of the tapes. I wasn't even attempting to try to experience any of the tools that we learned through the Gateway Experience tapes. I was just trying to fall asleep and take a nap, right? But in the beginning, I was kind of half awake and half asleep, and I started to have an out-of-body experience. I like to call this a natural OBE, right? It was amazing. It was just a split second, because I believe I fell asleep right afterwards. But it was just kind of as I was slipping into unconsciousness, I could feel my spirit body leaving. Very different than the synthetic out-of-body experience that we have while listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. Okay? Again, Monroe doesn't really talk about this distinction between a natural and a synthetic out-of-body experience, but I think maybe there's something there, right? This natural one, basically what I saw, I was again just laying down flat on my back, arms to the side like I do when I'm listening to the tapes, but again, I was just trying to take a nap. But what I saw was my left arm, my spirit arm, sort of blue like you see lit up here with the lights, and it was just naturally, simply, very easily, very fluidly, it was just moving. I could feel it almost as if I was like, moving up out of my body, ready to get going, like my head and shoulders and everything was following this arm as it started to float upwards. That's all I saw, was just that momentary movement, the natural way, just having it happen naturally versus working our way through the preparatory process, using the enhancements of psilocybin and everything. Again, synthetic is maybe not the best term for that because we're using natural medicines like psilocybin and THC. We're just listening to sounds on our headphones. So again, no synthetic drugs or anything like that. But, when we listen to the tapes, it's not that we're forcing it. We're just consciously getting into the out-of-body state, right? But again, this was more that beginning of the unconscious release and move into the out-of-body state. And it felt, again, very natural. It's like it was just occurring without me even knowing. And it was kind of like we've talked a little bit about before where, and I'm sure there's all sorts of genius guys, psychiatrists, and all that stuff out there who've already talked about this, but a little bit of the two people inside of you kind of this other person inside who is not the conscious you, right? The ego, the id, whatever we call it. Maybe that's our soul. But it almost felt like that's what was leaving. And I talked about this before during one of the tapes. As I was starting to fall asleep, I believe it was tape 1-5, the exploration of sleep. As I'm falling asleep, I could feel part of myself, again, almost that ego or the id or the soul or something. He was floating backwards. He was sinking deep, and he was just like, bye, I'm out. See you later. I'm going to go have fun. And the conscious me was sitting here going, wait, I want to go with him. Where's he going? What's happening? But I just fell asleep into unconsciousness, right? I think maybe it was that same state, but this was more of a natural occurrence of it. I thought it was really cool. It felt really cool. I wanted to share that with you again, just because one of the most important parts that we do, again, our only real commandment here is have your own experience and then share it with others. That's what's so important. I try to share even these small things that are occurring. That way, if they happen to you, exactly like it's happening to me, you can understand, hey, I can compare it, or something like this, if something like this happens to you. Again, we've talked about examples of the hypnic jerk, right? So that as you're starting to fall asleep and as you're falling into the dream world, I told you the story where I heard the kids next door, they were throwing one of those wiffle balls or the Nerf football that had the whistle in it going back and forth, pew, pew. And I could hear them doing that. And as I was falling asleep, literally, my arm tried to throw the ball and it woke me right up. I mean, my whole arm jerked, right? Like I was throwing the football next. That was amazing. That was this amazing connection between this dream that you're having and your physical body doing it, right? And again, it's important to share those things. So as we have those experiences ourselves, again, it's important to compare them with others. So when you have these type of experiences, make sure you share them with all of us. All right, folks, for this season finale here, season 5, season finale, we finished up with the book Ultimate Journey. It's over there on the shelf now. That was the 3rd book in Robert Monroe's 3-book trilogy. And I found something interesting that I bought this years ago, 2 years plus, at almost the very beginning of my work here. Again, I call this the 7-year art project. We're coming up on the very end of the 3rd year. And very early on, I bought this little book, right? Now, here's the thing. I don't know why I bought this book. I don't really remember what led me to it. I was thinking maybe a TikTok video that I saw kind of led me into this research. But this is an example of the promise I made to myself when I began this journey is that I would acquire knowledge wherever I could find it. And if what I had learned fell perfectly into what I'm doing here, then I was going to gather that information and make it part of the study, right? I wasn't going to reject information because of where it came from. That's old school. That's gatekeeping nonsense. We don't do that here in the Mind War. We take in information from wherever we can get it. And if it works for us, if it works in the program, then we're going to go with it, right? Okay, so this little booklet here is titled The Odic Fluid, okay? Follow along here, folks, because it's just as confusing to me, but we're going to try to make sense of it together. Because again, I don't remember where I found this book, why I bought it, but here's an interesting thing. This is an article that was extracted from another book. So this isn't even the whole book. For some reason, I just bought part of another book. That other book is called Future Life in the Light of Ancient Wisdom and Modern Science. The author's name is Louis Elby. Okay, again, the book where this is taken from is called Future Life in the Light of Ancient Wisdom and modern science, okay? Again, I'm not quite sure why I bought this book or how I got my hands on it. I think I just ordered it from Amazon, and it's weird because it's just a reprint. And it basically says that they just copied this little portion out for me. And so let's go through it. Let's read what the odic fluid is. It says, as we have conceived it, the fluidic body is compounded of a number of subtle elements which are doubtless arranged in a series of aggregates, each operative in its own particular domain, and bringing about in the animal organism all the mysterious actions which matter is incapable of performing alone. Okay. So the odic fluid that this book is talking about is basically saying that this is the part of us that animates our physical body. Without this odic fluid, our physical body wouldn't be able to function. It governs organic life, receives sensory impressions, and transmits intellectual conceptions. Yet in all its manifold manifestations, it remains unable to reveal itself directly, but is throughout confounded with the physical body, from which it can escape only at death. I believe that they're saying that the odic fluid, as they describe it in this kind of scientific terms here, is either our spirit or our soul, our second state body, our spirit body. We are consequently always confronted with a fundamental difficulty in endeavoring to prove its distinct existence. So these scientists, because I'll tell you here in a moment from how old this book is and who's writing it, they were saying that, they need to try to figure out some type of scientific experiment to prove the existence of the soul or the spirit. It says, howbeit, if direct observation is not within our power, we should seek, if possible, to gather indirect evidence of the action of the fluidic body in certain manifestations which are perceptible, and thus win support for the proposed theory. Okay. So here's how they're going to describe this odic fluid. This fluidic radiation reveals the action of the etheric body, especially in its capacity for maintaining organic life. It takes place normally outside the cutaneous envelope of the body and is concentrated chiefly at the sensory organs and extremities, especially the fingers, head, and hands. Okay? So, one of the things that we've talked about, one of the tapes, we held our palms upward and we received energy. We harnessed energy and allowed it to flow in through the palms of our hands into our body. We are constantly talking about, as we breathe in, we're breathing white, healing light inwards up through our feet, spiraling upwards, refilling our chakras, and then landing in our brain, in our head. And it's from here we depart from the body. The spirit body starts to really move beyond, right? Our perception, our thinking moves beyond the physical body. It is constantly present in normal life, and its existence would therefore seem easy enough to prove. Unfortunately, it is imperceptible to the majority of men. Under ordinary conditions, it can be seen only by a few persons gifted with a special visual sensitivity, permitting them to discern the glow by which it is accompanied. Folks, what they're talking about here is all those people, maybe you're one of them, but maybe you know people like this who say that they can see the aura of people. They say that when they look at the physical body of people, they see light emanating from around them, different colored light. Maybe the different color describes their physical condition or their emotional state. How bright the light is maybe means how healthy and powerful they are. If they have a dim light that's maybe showing them as sick or something like that, right? So it's very interesting. Again, they're talking about here that only a special group of people that have this visual sensitivity can see this glow of the odic fluid. Only in exceptional cases can it be emitted with sufficient intensity to affect normal senses. As a result, its existence is still a contested matter. So again, they're saying only, occasionally will the odic fluid, the spirit body, the soul, be so powerful that it can be picked up by our 5 regular senses. Normal human beings, like all of us, well, not all of us, I know we're special here, folks, right? Let's not get silly. The mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks, we know that we are part of an elite club, a set-aside group of people who have, from childhood, known that we have some type of psychic abilities. We have either hid it from everyone else, or when we try to explain it to others, they usually shoot us down, but we know that it's there. That's why we're doing training in this work now. We're no longer just allowing ourselves and our gifts to just, stumble upon them and have them just happen whenever happenstance, right? We're now learning to control them, okay? And they're saying here that, again, people who have learned to control these gifts can see that aura, right? It says, however that may be, this mysterious fluid, which was already known in antiquity, has in our day been made the subject of much research. The reason I read that, this mysterious fluid, which was already known in antiquity. Antiquity means the past. All the other civilizations, all the other spiritual groups, they all knew of the odic fluid. They all knew of the second state body. They all knew and understood how to have the out-of-body experience. We are not discovering anything new, okay? We are simply rediscovering the hidden truths that are out there. These same truths that I believed were kept under lock and key by secret societies for at least the last 2,000 years during the dark ages of Christianity and Judaism and Islam. The last 2,000 years of hate and death and destruction that has come as a result of the Abrahamic faiths, right? That's why secret societies were created in the first place. Because you go around and you start talking about spirit bodies and having out-of-body experiences. Well, oh no, the Crusaders are not going to be okay with that, right? The heads of the churches are not going to be okay with that. They're going to put you in the stockades. They're going to burn you as a witch. You start talking about this kind of stuff, right? But this was known by the ancient people. And it was revered by them. And it was taught by them. And it wasn't a secret back then. All of these ancient societies that we talk about as being so powerful spiritually, this is what they were doing. And we're simply trying to get back there. But we have to destroy the organizations, corporations, and institutions that pollute our minds, poison our bodies, and corrupt our souls. We talk about it over and over in the mind where they're holding us down. They don't want to just come right out and kill us because they need us. But they sure as hell don't want us to advance. They don't want us to know these things. They're afraid that we're going to use it against them. When all we want to do is use it to heal our mind, body, and spirit and help those around us. That's it. We're not trying to do this to manipulate others and take advantage of people and control the world. No. We're just doing it to try to find peace and tranquility in life. To go on here, it says in 1679. Okay, so again, I don't know when this book was written. Let me see if it has any information. But I do know that this is an old book, maybe over 100 years old. So we're working with scientists from long ago. That's, again, another part that I thought was very interesting about this book. It says in 1679, a Scottish doctor named William Maxwell published a work on magnetic medicine, wherein he described the properties of certain material rays emitted from the human body, in which he says the soul operated by its presence, giving them energy and power to act. A century later, an Australian doctor, Anton Mesmer, remember that name, taking up Maxwell's ideas, declared the existence of a fluid diffused throughout the universe, acting upon the animal body and penetrating even into the nervous tissue. In the human body, it manifested properties analogous to those of the magnet. He remarks that the human body presents contrary poles, which can, to use his phrase, be communicated, changed, destroyed, or increased, and can display the phenomenon of inclination. The attractive or repellent action emanating from them is operative at a distance, even upon inanimate objects, the presence of which may strengthen and propagate it. It is accompanied by the emission of matter so subtle as to penetrate all bodies without noticeable loss of activity. Owing to these analogies, Mesmer proposed the name this new fluid animal magnetism, although he was aware that in other respects it differed essentially from the fluid of natural or artificial magnets. Okay. Again, what they said here is our odic fluid, the spirit body. It can interact with physical objects here in the real world. I thought that was interesting. And the name Anton Mesmer, that's where we get the word mesmerize, right? The hypnotic state of being mesmerized by something. You're focused on it. You're attracted to it. You're excited by it. You're mesmerized by it. It's these great men of our past that Robert Monroe was just another name in this long list of great men who have explored the spirit body, who have explored out-of-body experiences, who have explored the things that go beyond our 5 physical senses, right? I like to hope that we here in the Mind War, us Mind Warriors, the Gateway Explorers, I like to think that we're just the next group of people who are added to this long list of great scientists who have gone through this, right? Again, I'm no scientist. I don't have a degree in physics or any of those type of things. But, we are learning. We're taking what they have taught us and we're putting it into action. And that's an important part of science as well, right? Is actually experimenting and experiencing. It goes on here to say, an artillery captain named Tardy de Montreval, who lived at the end of the 18th century, wrote an essay on the theory of animal magnetism, directly inspired by Mesmer's ideas. He remarks that there are grounds for distinguishing in man a subtle body formed from this magnetic fluid, a kind of material soul controlling the body. In support of this hypothesis, he remarks that every action of volition is necessarily accompanied by a varying expenditure of energy, which must be conveyed by the soul to the physical organs involved in order to supply them with the requisite resistance. And he concludes that the magnetic fluid alone is able to furnish that supply. Okay. Again, he's saying our spirit body or our soul is what ultimately controls the physical body. Now hear this, folks. This is why we read this chapter. He further observes that all psychics are agreed that in the hypnotic state, they acquire the vision of this fluid, which they can see radiating about their magnetizer. Psychics have all agreed that in the hypnotic state, they acquire the vision to see the spirit body. It's exactly what we're fucking doing right here in the Mind War, folks. When you experience this, from this chapter, from that sentence alone, when you go through the Gateway Experience program, when you have your own experiences and your spirit body is created, you see it, you visualize it, you feel it, you control it. You do it through going into the hypnotic state, and you acquire the vision to see it, to control it. And now, as far as I'm concerned, based on this sentence, when you have those experiences, you can now officially call yourself a psychic. You see what we're doing here, folks? This goes just beyond science. It goes beyond meditation and self-help and all those type of things. When you want to continue this work, we're moving into new territories. Okay? We're learning the things that people have always wanted to know. We see it in movies all the time. The lady, she's in her little room and the crystal ball in front of her, and she's reading the tarot cards and all that stuff. I'm telling you, we are learning the actual real skills that people like that use. We're learning the real skills that Sauron from Lord of the Rings uses to look into Palantir, his crystal ball. We're learning magic, folks. We're becoming psychics here. Mediums, we talked about that before. If you want to become a channeler, we do it through this work. This is not what I set out to do, okay? 3 years ago when I started this project, this 7-year art project, I was just in a low point in life, and I just really needed to pull myself up from my bootstraps and do a little bit of self-help. That's all I thought I was doing. Instead, we have found ourselves on one of the most miraculous journeys that a human being can go through. Learning these tools that have been suppressed by the organizations, corporations, and institutions that run our lives. We're breaking free of their shackles. We're removing the wet blankets of society and culture and religion. We're putting all that stuff aside, saying we're not going to be controlled by you anymore. And now we're learning the tools that have been kept hidden from us for decades, centuries, millennia. Who fucking knows, man? It goes on here to say that most psychics perceive a bright, luminous fluid surrounding their body and given off with especially intensity from the head and hands. They recognize that he is able to concentrate this fluid at will, direct it, and impregnate various substances with it. And again, when we get into the spiritual side of things, and I start to share with you some of the techniques that we're going to use in ritual and ceremony, it's exactly what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to harness this this substance, this fluid, right? And you can send it wherever you need. And we're going to learn all of that. We got time. We still got 3 more months to finish here in the Gateway program series, and then we move into magic. And in the magic series, I will teach you how to do that through the things that I've done in my ritual and ceremony, right? And it's fucking amazing. And it's amazing having done that to then be able to read back through books like this and say, holy shit, I'm not the only one who's done it. I didn't come up with this on my own. I I learned these things on my own through just knowledge and just trying things over and over and over again. And then eventually, as I go through and I start to read these things again and go, holy shit, that's exactly what I was doing, right? And it feels great when you make that connection. It says, many see it not only when actually in the state of somnambulism, but also during several minutes after their awakening. They find it to possess an agreeable odor of its own, which gives a peculiar flavor to water and food. Some persons perceive the fluid when they are magnetized, although they are not in a state of somnambulism. I have come across people who perceived it while magnetizing, but this is extremely rare. Most somnambulists believe that this fluid can be concentrated in a reservoir, that it exists in the stars, and that the will of the magnetizer or magician, when assisted by a movement of the hand repeated several times in the same direction, guides the fluid and gives it a definite motion. As I have obtained these data from all the psychics whom I've consulted, and the magnetizers in all countries have obtained the like, I am compelled to admit the existence of the magnetic fluid. So again, they're talking about here that we can control this odic fluid, the spirit body, okay? And it goes even beyond that energy, that white healing energy that Monroe taught us how to harness. This is what we're talking about, right? Absorbing it, controlling it, creating our energy toolbar out of it. This is what he's talking about. And we're going to go well beyond the tools that Monroe taught us. And again, in the spiritual work, we're going to use it for all sorts of things. But one term, I said it multiple times in that paragraph, somnambulism. Somnambulism is the trance-like state that we put ourselves in through the use of the Gateway Experience tapes in combination with the psilocybin enhancements. And once we get into the hypnotic state, the trance-like state of somnambulism, then and only then do we do the spiritual work, the ritual, and the ceremony. Okay? We're going to learn all that in future seasons. Don't you worry, folks. But remember that word somnambulism. We are, as the paragraph says, we are learning to become somnambulists. Okay? AKA magicians. So I just had to share that piece with you there. I think there's one last thing that I'm going to read here from this strange little book. Again, I'm not really sure how I got my hands on this thing, but it says, as may be gathered from the preceding references, the various scientists who have undertaken to investigate odic fluid have all been led to admit the objective of existence of a radiation peculiar to living organisms. At the same time, they have had to acknowledge that it is perceptible only to persons either normally gifted with peculiar sensitivity or preferably thrown into a state of hypnosis. I'm telling you, folks, we're so close, man. We're so close. I'm so excited to move into this next chapter. Again, I know we have 3 more months, right? We have an entire one more season to go through in the Gateway Experience program here, and I look forward to that. But man, I'm so excited to share with you how we roll all of this into magic, into ceremony, and into ritual. Okay, so again, an interesting little book there called The Odic Fluid, being researched hundreds of years ago by men like Anton Mesmer, where we get the term mesmerized, okay? Great men in history have been studying what we're doing here in the Mind War. They've been studying it for hundreds of years. I believe, like the book says here, this is was known by men of antiquity, those ancient people that came before us who were so much more connected to life and the earth and just what it meant to be alive. They knew what they were doing. They didn't have the organizations, corporations, and institutions crushing them. They instead, I believe, were celebrating this type of knowledge, right? Instead of keeping it hidden and being punished for learning it, right? But we're breaking those shackles. We're taking those wet blankets off, and we're sharing with everyone what we're learning here, folks. So let's see. We are going to be doing a deep dive into Wave 6 Odyssey, Tape 6, Free Flow Journey in Focus 21, after a word from our sponsor.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War.
All right, welcome back, folks. Let's do our deep dive into Wave 6 Odyssey, Tape 6, Free Flow Journey in Focus 21. The tape begins like this. By now, we hope you have truly experienced the non-physical states of awareness and know the potential of further exploration. The most important part of your journey is to practice what you have learned and do in a whole new way, bringing in the greater energy and greater consciousness into your daily life. The purpose of this exercise is to integrate what you have learned throughout this series. So in this final tape of Wave 6, we're going to kind of coalesce and bring together everything that we've learned, and we're going to do it now in Focus 12. Floating comfortably within our energy body, begin to notice the light that is surrounding you. Warm, comfortable, soft light emanating from your energy body. Relax into this light. Be grateful for the comfort and peace you find, the love you feel within the embrace of this calming, peaceful light. Now, allow yourself to begin to move through the light, taking with you this feeling of love and peaceful awareness. You are beginning to move through the light, moving to Focus 21. That is the best description. It's what I've been trying to say since day one of the Gateway Experience program, is that this state of being that you're going to get into, okay, again, nice and warm in bed, you got the psilocybin enhancements flowing through you, maybe some THC flowing through you, the headphones on, the eye covers on. When you listen to the tapes, you move into this feeling of warmth and peace. It's pain-free. And again, for those of you who, like myself, middle-aged, or just anybody who is dealing with chronic pain, right? This is the one time every 2 weeks that you might have an hour or two without just dealing with the pains and aches and agonies of the physical body, right? And it's a beautiful feeling. And it's okay to do that. You know, because we're doing this in a way that is as healthy as we can. We're not taking opioids. We're not taking synthetic pills. We're not taking fentanyl and heroin and all the other shit that, you know, you can escape from the pain of reality with, right? The alcohol and the other drugs. We're not doing that. We're using natural substances. Hopefully that you grew yourself just like I did, right? And we get to, again, just for a short time, experience life outside of pain. Experience life outside of the cold realities of physical life. It says, now relax and feel calm and comfortable in Focus 21. Beyond this light, those who know and understand and love you, they are willing to assist you in this process, to experience more of Locale 2. Ask for their guidance. Ask for their assistance. Be willing and open to receive. So once I got into Focus 21, again, that same feeling of breaking through a barrier, right? You kind of go through this barrier into the next layer. There's kind of this atmospheric layer from locale 1. You move through it, and now you kind of land back on the surface of locale 2. Now you're just at the surface level. And so when I was there, again, it's that feeling of the whole physical body went with you in the spaceship, and now you just kind of landed. I asked for assistance. And of course, who better to ask for assistance through this work and to give gratitude to than exactly what we talked about in the last episode, Robert and Nancy Monroe. And so that's what I did. Once in locale 2, I called out to Robert and Nancy and I said, thank you so much for your assistance. Thank you for being here as teachers and educators and guides through this process. Now, I wish in this season finale I could tell you some amazing story about how great this felt and I escaped the body and had all these type of amazing events, but I embarrassingly have to tell you the truth because I told you, I promised all of you that I would be as transparent as I possibly can throughout this series. And basically, as soon as Robert and Nancy, their kind of spirit was next to me, it was a lot like when we talked about a few episodes ago, when the 4 spirits come, they were pillars of obsidian shooting up into the sky. Well, Robert and Nancy, when they appeared, Robert on my left, Nancy on my right, it was much more like when I talked about being there with my grandparents, right? They were just kind of shadows of themselves. It was just more of the essence of feeling them there. And as soon as they got there, I felt them lifting up my physical body and saying, Victor, you got to get up and you got to get out of bed and you need to do it right now. And I thought, what? Why are they saying this? What are we doing? We just started. I just got here. I was really kind of upset, right? And so I said, no, I'm going to keep going. And they just kept pushing me and they said, no, you got to get up. You got to get out of bed. And here's what happened, folks. I've told you the importance of making sure that you are nice and warm when you listen to the tapes. Well, you can also overdo it. And that's exactly what I did. I was tucked in a little too tight. I had one too many blankets on. The jumpsuit was a little too warm and the heater was a little too high and I was just overheating. I literally was cooking myself while listening to this tape. And as soon as they kind of said, no, you have to get up, I snapped out of the tape and realized, holy shit, I am burning up here. It felt like I was having almost a fever, right? So I ripped off the blankets. I took the jumpsuit off. I ran into the bathroom and splashed some cold water in my face, drank a huge glass of cold water, and I looked in the mirror, and folks, I just got to be honest again. My face was pure white. I was in trouble, right? The overheating with the psilocybin and the THC, just being an old turd, it really kicked my ass. And so I ran outside. It's December here, so it's nice and cold here at the Mind War States. I took a few real deep breaths of cold air and, calmed myself down. The color returned to my face. But that was a real mistake. I messed up. I have to be careful in a couple of different ways, right? So I learned a big lesson with this one. Number one, again, you want to be warm, but don't overdo it, okay? Because you don't want to overheat in the middle of the tape. But a more important lesson that I learned, and one that I hate learning, and I don't want to have to take this advice, is that I have to remember I'm in my mid-40s. I'm an old man. I'm dealing with chronic health issues. And maybe the levels of THC and psilocybin that I am ingesting were just a little too high. I have to be careful about that. So I think during my next journey, the next time I listen to the tapes, I don't think that I'm going to be able to take a full, what I call Gen X Jello shots. Basically, you can see this on my Instagram, and again, we'll talk about it more in future seasons, but I made, using the magic mushroom powder and THC, marijuana infused coconut oil. I kind of mix those two things together. I put them in molds and then freeze them in my freezer, just like little pieces of candy that are shaped like a skull, basically. And that's what I use before each tape. And it's not a high dose of psilocybin. It's not a heroic dose of psilocybin, that 5 grams or whatever. I shy away from that. I tell people to stay away from it. Again, mushrooms are poisoning you, so you have to be very careful with them. I think the 5 grams, you do it once or twice. You do your heroic dose. You battle a few demons that you got to deal with. But for what we do, it's really crucial to have that low dose psilocybin. That 1 to 1.5 grams, I think, is basically what I'm ingesting here. But I just need to be very careful as I finish off the Gateway Experience program here. Again, we have 2 more waves 7 and 8. So I still have a lot of tapes to listen to, and I don't want to end up hurting myself, right? And again, this is also that message to all of you out there. If you're thinking of using the enhancements, make sure that you're physically able to do it. Again, this is not advice. I'm not saying that you should do this. It's just what I'm doing, right? So basically what happened is later that night, I had a snack and I went and did my spiritual work and kind of finished up what I normally do on these nights, and then ate some food, watched a little bit of TV just to kind of calm down and relax. And then I said, okay, while I'm falling asleep, I want to listen to the tape again. So I smoked a little bit of weed, hit the vape pen a few times, took some edibles. I was really just doing the THC stuff, which I normally do before I go to bed anyways. And I listened to the tape again. So what I found is without the psilocybin, the tapes really are at 50% or less. I mean, it's just really not the same. It just doesn't quite work, One of the things that I dealt with that second listen through was, I didn't overheat. I was maybe a little cold. And the pain was just still there. Even with the THC, the pain just doesn't disappear. So I was very anchored to the physical body through the pain, right? But I went through the tapes. It almost felt more like I was listening to them than experiencing them. We've talked a lot about the difference between those two things. This was more of a 50-50 kind of thing. My goal was to, though, consciously be grateful to Robert and Nancy Monroe. Again, that theme between last episode and this episode is just showing that gratitude and thanks. And that's the next step of the tape here. It says, express your gratitude for this experience. Know that you can always connect with each other when you need. All you need to do is think of those who have helped you. And you know that help is always and freely available from this point forward. So it was really more of a conscious, almost prayer and thanks to Robert and Nancy Monroe and all the work for the team from the Monroe Institute and everyone who's carried this forward to today. Again, this is a 50-year-old program, basically. And it was very important to give thanks. So again, with the season finale here, I wish I could have told you some very fanciful story about leaving the body and having this, amazing journey out of the body, but it really was more muted and more just focused on giving thanks, which is very important and a very crucial aspect of what we're doing here. So that was Wave 6 Odyssey, Tape 6, Free Flow Journey in Focus 21. The final tape of Wave 6, the final tape for Season 5, here in our season finale. In the next season, in Season 6, we're again going to go through Waves 7 and 8. I think we're going to learn what comes beyond Focus 21. We're going to start to actually put into practice some of the things we've learned about helping others, those spirits who have passed on before us, and really understand what comes next after we pass away. So, another beautiful season. It was amazing coming this far with all of you. I'm so proud of you for coming this far. I'm proud of the work that we've done here. 9 full months. Nobody does this. No podcast has done anything like this. This is awesome what we're doing here. And again, we can all be proud of what we're doing. So, before we finish today's episode, I have some very important information that I need to share with all of you that's really going to shape the remainder of this series. Possibly it could have some very big impact on my life as well, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Welcome back, folks. I appreciate you being here and for this final segment of Mind Wars Season 5. So, for those of you that have been following along, you know that in regards to the Gateway Experience program, we've moved kind of away from the self-help portion of the tapes. And we have been learning from Robert Monroe the tools and skills that we need to assist people who have passed away. And their spirit may kind of be stuck in the layers that lay beyond life, right? Those layers that we go through after we pass away. And he talks about the importance of, helping others through what comes next, right? Through our exploration of what comes next and in some ways that probably is part of the self-help as well, right? Helping others. What better way to help yourself, of course, right? So that was it's very interesting. It's a turn I didn't know that we were going to be taking. Really, I thought that the, tapes after, Wave 6, 7, and 8, again, I never really listened to those thoroughly in the past. In my first listen through, I thought we would just be learning more remote viewing tools or, astral travel type tools. And I think we will, but I didn't know it was going to be for the purpose of helping people who have passed away. Okay. And so those of you who have been following along with this series and with my art over on Instagram, I've been very clear that as we go through next season and work through the next 2 waves, my goal was to maybe find my friend Nathan, my childhood best friend who died of a fentanyl overdose just 3 months before I returned home from California. I'd been gone for 20 years. And he had struggled with drug addiction throughout almost that whole time. And I was so excited to get back and see him and maybe be able to help him break his addictions here in physical life. But sadly, again, he died just 3 months before I returned. My goal was to help him. And that might still be what happens, but there are some other things happening, right? So again, those of you that have been following along, you know that, today's episode's being recorded in December of 2024. And this time last year, I had a family member pass away. So this was my uncle-in-law. This was a man who, when I lived out in California, him and his wife were really the only family members we had in California. And he played the role of grandfather to my twin children, right? And he took amazing care of them, him and his wife. And they were amazing people. And what happened is last December, I was doing my spiritual work like I normally do. And on a full moon, I was doing tarot cards and I pulled the death card. 2 weeks after I pulled that card, I received a phone call from my children and their mother saying that Uncle Steve had cancer. I believe it was liver cancer. And that the symptoms came on very fast and that he wasn't doing well. And 2 weeks later, he passed away. So again, we're going to talk a lot about tarot cards in future seasons. But that was an example of the power of this work. I pulled the death card. And by the next full moon, actually just 3 hours after I pulled the next card, Uncle Steve had passed away. Okay. That was very powerful. I've told that story, I believe, in the end of season 2. You can find it there. But that was a very powerful and difficult situation, right? Now, once again, 1 year later in December, I have another family member who has just been diagnosed with late-stage cancer. And that is my mother. So, on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, this was just about 2 weeks ago now, Mom hadn't been feeling well for a few weeks. She got a cold, and then she got bronchitis, and she thought she had just got sick, right? But she had been coughing for quite a long time, and so finally, after about 4 weeks of it, I had gone over that Sunday, which I normally do. I like to visit on the weekend, pick up some Culvers for us to eat for lunch, and we just relax for an afternoon. I've been trying to go over and watch football with them. You guys know I'm not a huge football fan, but they are, so I've been trying to participate with them. We watched the game, we ate some Culvers, and I went home, and Mom said she wasn't feeling well. And she said, you know what, I've put this off long enough. I think I need to go have an x-ray on my chest because I'm really tired of coughing, you know. And so she went, her and Dad went to a local place, a local clinic. It was a Sunday to try to get x-rays. There was nobody there to do it, but they noticed that her heartbeat was really too high. And so they said, yeah, you need to go to the emergency room because of your heartbeat. We don't really know what's going on with your lungs because we can't x-ray them, but you need to go because of that. She gets to the ER. She had called me on the way there, told me what was going on. And so I went to their house because she dropped my dad off, and him and I were hanging out for a couple of hours. And now it was about 3 hours since we had heard from her last, right? Since she had went to the ER by herself. We hadn't heard from her, and I finally called and I said, hey, what's going on? She said, yeah, I think they're going to keep me here for a little while, so maybe you can collect some things for me and bring them in. And I said, oh boy, okay. So I gathered some pajamas and toiletries and some of her medication and stuff. And I went out there by myself to the hospital and dropped them off for her. And as soon as I walked in the door, she said, listen, they did the x-rays and they have found some really big spots on my lungs. And it looks like cancer. They said, we don't have the diagnosis yet. But she was like, I'm pretty sure that's what this is. So over the next week, right, it was Thanksgiving week. So she was in the hospital for a few days. She got a few tests done. One of them was a biopsy where they actually went through her mouth and took pieces from both of her lungs. That was very difficult for her. And then we picked her up the next day, which was Wednesday. So, Wednesday night, because we were supposed to go to my sister's house on the weekend for Thanksgiving, right? It was a couple of days after Thursday or whatever, but we realized, well, we're not doing that. So Wednesday night, after I picked Mom up and brought her back home, I went to the local Kroger here, and thank goodness that Kroger understands there's going to be guys like me who are going to come in on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving and need an entire Thanksgiving meal. And they very geniusly basically put everything you need for a Thanksgiving meal on one table that was right next to the freezer that had all the hams and turkeys in it. And so I just walked right over there. I got all the fixins, and we had an amazing Thanksgiving meal the next day, although it was quite subdued by this new information that we got. And so a couple of days later, on Monday, so that following Monday, so again, this was just a few days ago now. Today's Thursday, so this was just a few days ago. We went and met with her primary care doctor, and we were able to officially see the results of all the tests that she went through the week before. And that's when, they made it very clear this is late stage lung cancer that has really started to move outside of the lungs. I guess there's some kind of tissue outside of your lungs that it's moved into. She said it looks like it's moved maybe towards her aorta. And it was very interesting that when I first walked into the emergency room that first night, my mom was very calm. And she made it very clear to me that she was not interested in going through a lot of painful treatment and prolonging a life of suffering for maybe just gaining a few weeks or months. So it was a lot to hear all at one time, right? Normally when we hear people that have cancer, you hear of these heroic battles as they go through chemo and they go through radiation and all this other stuff, right? But I think it's important to understand that's not the reality for everyone. Okay? So if you or someone you love is dealing with this, understand that that's not the only way. The toxic, poisonous, painful treatments of Western medicine aren't the only way. And now I'm not saying, we're just going to look into, Eastern medicinal stuff or whatever, all natural healing. That doesn't necessarily need to be the path either. Sometimes the path is just to move forward and to rest and allow life to occur. Now, she's decided to go to a few more appointments just to hear what some treatment options are, but there's been no decisions yet where she goes with this. But again, she's made it very clear that she doesn't want to suffer needlessly, right? So, one of the things that I wanted to mention with this, okay? So with Uncle Steve, last year, again, he died of liver cancer. Okay. And now this year, it looks like my mother is going to die of lung cancer. So, some people in my family who do not like what I do, right? They don't like the mind war. They don't like the magic, especially. They really don't like the magic. They think the things that I'm doing are evil, right? And there has been rumors that I am making these things happen by what I'm doing. Now, as mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks, we know better, right? Nothing that I'm doing is causing these cancers to occur. Uncle Steve was a lifelong drinker. Not an alcoholic who was mean and awful and all of those things, no. But like myself, when I drank for 20 years, a Joe six-pack. He was fun to be around when he drank a few beers. He would drink a few beers and work around the yard and stuff, right? Normal stuff. But he did it for over 50 years. And that's what resulted in his liver cancer. Not magic, not black magic, not the Gateway Experience programs, nothing that I'm doing caused him to have liver cancer. It was his alcoholism. My mother, she smoked for 50 years. She knew the possibilities of getting lung cancer. Every smoker does. So much so that this is another great story, because this is the proof, right? So my grandmother and her sister were twins, okay? My grandmother is still alive at 92 years old. Her twin sister died at 50 years old. They both started smoking at the same time. One of them quit and lived, and one of them didn't and died. It's that perfect story. It shows, that these things are poison and that they are damaging and killing you. And that if you stop them, you have a chance to save yourself and extend your life for a long, long time. That's cigarettes and alcohol, right? And now again, nothing that I'm doing is causing these things to happen. But if the work that I'm doing here through my spiritual practices, if it's having any effect on these life events, it's simply this. It's the revelation. It's the revealing of the illusion. The illusion was that you could spend 50 years of your life and not die of liver cancer. That illusion was shattered. The illusion was that you could smoke cigarettes for 50 years of your life and not die of lung cancer. That illusion was broken. A lot of what I've experienced through the practice of magic, again, it's not making things happen that are unrealistic. Again, it's more the revelation of the illusion. We are breaking the illusions around us. Whether it's these instances or calling out to my friend Deog, who I haven't seen for 10 fucking years. And then literally days later, some internet pranksters go undercover into the Judeo-Christian cult that he's been a member of for over 20 years. And there, sure enough, after screaming his name into the abyss just days before, saying, "I see you, Deog," he appeared on my television screen. I didn't make that happen. It's simply revealing the illusion. Now, as a cult member, he lives an illusion. He lives a fake life as a character. And over again, the illusion is broken, right? Because again, I'm not a magician who stands on the stage with props and all sorts of things, making all sorts of, spooky stuff happen, right? Those are the illusions of fake magicians. What we do here through the practice of real magic is we break the illusion. We break people out of the hypnosis, the hypnotic spell that they're under because of religion or culture, society, the phones, whatever it is that's got these people, whatever they're addicted to that's keeping them hypnotized. We break that illusion. We break these illusions of health, that you can live an unhealthy life doing things that you know are bad for you and not ultimately succumb to them. So again, this is being recorded on December 5th, 2024. We're just days out from getting the official diagnosis that my mother has late-stage lung cancer. Again, she is reluctant to, at this point, go through any painful treatment, right? And she's been very open with me that things could move very quickly, just like they did with Uncle Steve. That's the reality that we're living with. And that's where there is now a new path that has opened up, or possibly opening up for the remainder of this series. I thought that I was going to be going and maybe looking for my friend Nathan to see if he is caught in the reincarnation trap. I thought maybe I could go and look for Uncle Steve, even though he was such a great guy. And I think he knew about these things too. He didn't quite practice them, but I think he knew enough that he wouldn't get trapped in any type of reincarnation cycle. But I definitely knew he was someone that I could call upon. But now we're looking at this very real possibility that I will be helping my own mother through her transition from physical life to death over the next few weeks, and then possibly through the use of astral travel, helping the spirit of my mother move through the layers that lay beyond life. This is not what I thought was going to be happening in this series. This is not what I thought I was going to be talking about today, folks. I appreciate you being here. It means a lot to me, knowing that there are others who are not just listening to this content, but learning from it and hopefully gaining knowledge and experience from it. And it's going to be able to help you deal with these, events that all of us go through in life. So, as we move into next season, we'll see where things are. And of course, I'll keep all of you updated as we go through the next few weeks, and we'll see what happens. But I appreciate the ability to share this with all of you. It's not necessarily a difficult time in life. There are difficulties. It's heavy. And what I found trying to do my spiritual work the other night was that it's very difficult enjoying the realms of fantasy when you're dealing with the weight of reality. As always, I appreciate you being here. And remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.